Hey everyone, it's Mike from the Screwjob Podcast. I know I'm behind the trend of releasing videos about this topic, considering it happened like 3 weeks ago. But I think it is time to talk about the John Oliver last week tonight video about WWE. I wanted to make sure that I had like a good take on this and that I like did some homework ahead of time when talking about this. So for people who are uninformed or uninformed rather, John Oliver, who hosts Last Week Tonight, does some great pieces, very funny. He did a segment on WWE, mostly more about Vince and all the problems that the company has. Uh, so pretty much that's all we're going to be talking about today. No match, nothing fun like that. But I do think that this is an important topic and we should take some time to think about it and talk about it. So that's what I'm going to do. I have a little list of things that Oliver talked about and some of my problems with it. So first off, I want to give him props for saying that he is a wrestling fan, and that really does give me some credence, or not credence. I don't know. It lends something to this piece. If because wrestling is one of the easier things to mock in the world, to be honest with you. Uh, I don't know. It's not respected because it isn't a quote unquote real sport. It's sports entertainment, and I accept that. It is like a sitcom with fighting. So I do like that he is coming from a place where he says he is a wrestling fan. Because it's not someone berating wrestling fans, calling them stupid. It's not someone saying, hey, look at all these idiots who are dying because of their choices in life and their chosen profession and whatnot. Uh, so I just wanted to get that out of the way. Say, at least he's taking this from a good like perspective. So he opens the piece talking about some of the deaths of wrestlers like Piper, Bundy, trying to think some other ones. Snuka, I'm sure. No, he wasn't in there, but still. Uh, and that was one of the first points that he really didn't talk about that much, but he gets back to it later. But he does talk about how wrestlers die way earlier than any other profession, more than the NFL, more than like the average. So there's that's something to think about for us fans. I guess look. Here's what I'm gonna say ahead of time, and it's gonna be in my wrap up. This was nothing that I haven't heard before, right? It's a lot of this is common knowledge of the crap that WWE and Vince has gotten away with. But if you haven't seen it, go watch it, and if you want more of like an in-depth take on all of it, go for it. But look, this is nothing that I haven't heard or seen. So it's just like my reaction to this. Moving past the dead wrestlers, as terrible as that sounds, he talks about the territory days for a spell, for a minute. And he really glosses over Black Saturday, which was Vince pretty much killing off and stealing a crap ton of wrestlers and pretty much shutting down a crap ton of I just said crap ton twice in a row, but that's okay. A ton of wrestling promotions on July 14th, 1984. That's Black Saturday for wrestling fans. Pretty much during that time, Vince bought out a bunch of promotions and started moving WWF into a into a like more global standing. It would be a while before the Monday Night Wars, but still, this was like the first big step into his conquering of wrestling. Vince's conquering. Then we gotta talk about Bret Hart. So he aired a piece. Oliver aired a piece from Bret Hart's documentary Wrestling with Shadows. Now, do keep in mind that this came out right after the Montreal Screwjob. The piece that was taken, so it's very biased, and it is. I don't know. I just feel like the points that he was trying to get over, where wrestlers have a bad image of the company, after they leave was kind of undermined by this, considering what we know now and how Bret came back and he speaks pretty highly of the company. Even though his brother died and he is now the only remaining member of the Hart Foundation still with us. Uh, that's neither here nor there. So he then brings up independent contractors. So again, nothing I haven't heard. So it is a massive red flag with the independent contractors because they don't get insurance, they don't get all these other great benefits for working for a company. Now, with an independent contractor, you can go work for whoever you want, but WWE has their wrestlers sign contracts that say you can only work for us. So they're not really independent contractors, obviously. I'll spend some time on that. Again, moving past it, nothing I haven't heard. So along with that independent contractor, there are points of their policies that have been worked on a bit that still can use a lot of work, obviously. Excuse me. Such as no insurance for the wrestlers. Company officials and people in the offices get insurance, not the wrestlers who are putting their bodies on the line for our entertainment. That's a big old problem in my book. I don't know. It's a mess, man. Look, I'm trying to think of what to pivot into and talk about for this. But again, it's such an easy problem to fix. Give them actual contracts. Let them actually have insurance. Don't screw them over with this. He briefly talks about their BS wellness program that requires them to take a physical. Again, that's a nothing thing. I take a physical every year. John Oliver takes a physical every year. The wrestlers take a physical every year. It's stupid. It has nothing to do with anything that's going on in that period of time. I'm sorry, that made no sense. It has nothing to do with really anything involving the wrestlers. It's just it's something to look good, basically, if someone was looking into their company. They also are providing brain scans and whatnot and concussion protocols. That's nice, but then they also have to pay for their own insurance. So that's kind of an F up. Okay, so we move on to Jesse Ventura. So Ventura was on Howard Stern, and he was talking to Stern about the idea of independent contractors and all that BS, and Oliver brought up Jesse Ventura's union idea in the 80s. So if you don't know Jesse Ventura, who's former governor of Minnesota, and now he's a whack-job conspiracy theorist, from what I understand, let's see, what did he do? He was an announcer for Vince at this time, and he was speaking to the wrestlers about unionizing to try to get equal pay and insurance and all that great old stuff. But Hulk Hogan caught wind, and he informed Vince, and then Vince squashed Ventura's union. Ventura would end up going to the Screen Actors Guild, and he would get his insurance and benefits there and then join the company again before having way more crap ton of more issues with Vince, but that's a future story. Also, fun fact, during this time, Vince was trying to get God damn it. Oh, stick. Vince was trying to get Arnold Schwarzenegger to be at Mania. I don't remember which one. And he and Ventura, Ventura and Hogan went to talk to Arnold, and he had no interest in it. I think that's just kind of fun because Ventura was in Predator, which is a great movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Go watch it. Hashtag not ad. Let's see, what else? All right. So Oliver continues talking. He talks about CM Punk, not about his messy exit, but more about him crapping his pants in the middle of the ring after getting harassed by I don't remember the doctor's name after being told to go wrestle. I don't remember who the doctor was, but I know that Punk won a court case against him recently. But yeah, that's that's another story for another time. Basically, Punk crapped his pants and sent out a funny tweet. Uh, so we really do get into more of a more towards the end of the episode. This is a shorter piece. If it was an hour-long piece, then I'm sure I'd have a lot more to talk about, and it would go more in depth. But he does say that the fans have a voice, which I will agree with sometimes. He really undermines his own point by talking about Roman Reigns and how he is booed relentlessly. Like, this was right after he shows a clip from the Raw after Mania, directly after his defeat of The Undertaker in the main event of 33. Yeah, 33. He just gets booed out of the building. Roman got booed out of the building for 8 minutes straight, just constant booing, FU chants, etc. And his point was that the fans do have a voice and that we express it. The problem with that clip was that we now know Roman is going to be the eternal babyface, which, Coolio, he just came back from leukemia. I'm fine with him being a babyface right now. But that during that year when he was still on TV after being The Undertaker, he was not a heel. The fans did not turn him heel by booing him to death. So he does continue talking about how we do have a presence as fans, and he brings up Jake Roberts. Of course, Jake Roberts, one of the great wrestlers of the 80s, inventor of the DDT. So Jake the Snake, if you didn't know, he was having a real rough time in the 2000s, 90s, etc. He was falling apart. Diamond Dallas Page pretty much saved his life with DDP yoga, and fans started GoFundMe's to get him health insurance, or not health insurance, to cover his medical costs because of injuries, sustained from the ring. And it did really leave an impression on Jake because he didn't know that people still loved him and that I don't know, he was kind of blown away that people still cared so much about him, considering the wrestling industry is basically you're in and then you stay in, you're happy, etc. And then if you're out, you're thrown. I'm sure it's different now, or more now than ever, with the rise of independent circuits, whatnot. But it's not great. What it is, it's not great. Look, that's all I'm gonna say about that for now. I don't know how to articulate this point that that we love wrestlers and they have left a lasting impression on us throughout their careers and what they've done. How do I express that in a way that would make sense to someone who's not a fan? I don't know. Watch wrestling, that's how I'd say it. But, you get that skepticism where it's like, oh, it's not a real sport, I'm not gonna like it. I don't know, man. It's stupid. It's a waste, man. It's super sad with the deaths of wrestlers where they're not even taking the real liability of it. They're not taking the liability of the death. They're not responsible for the wrestlers that they do employ. They're their main asset. Without wrestlers, there would be no WWE, WWF, etc. It's an F up. It's a massive F up, and it's just dumb. And God, I wish that we lived in a world where where everyone got their health insurance, where the wrestlers we loved had time off, where they had a union, where everything was treated nice and well, but then that world doesn't exist. It's sad, I know. And I wish it wasn't true what I'm saying, but it is. I don't think it's ever going to happen. You know what? I'll take that back. It could happen. It's not going to happen anytime soon, sadly. Now, we do have voices. I didn't see any John Oliver signs at WrestleMania. I'm sure they were moved off camera. I didn't hear any chants for it. Who knows, man? We could feasibly at some point have that voice to push for all these things, but I don't know. We're not economists. Most of us aren't anyway. I don't know the ins and out of setting up an insurance plan for an entire company and changing the status from independent contractor to employer for an entire gosh darn company. I don't know how to do that. I don't know, and I'm sure there are people in the WWE that absolutely do know how to do that. But I mean, I don't work for WWE. I'm here mocking them for most of the time that I'm doing episodes in WCW and whatnot. Uh, Look, that's all. That's all I want to say. It's a mess. It's stupid. I wish that it wasn't like this. That everything was peachy and awesome, but it isn't. Man, that's just how it is sometimes. Sometimes it just sucks. All right. Time to talk about really my final thoughts. Uh, so again, I said this earlier, but this is nothing that I haven't heard before. Not Black September, Black Saturday. Uh, the union, the crushing of the union, no insurance, independent contractors, all that jazz. But I think this was a good piece for someone who isn't really a wrestling fan, or someone who isn't really like as into wrestling as I am, like someone who's a casual viewer who wants to know about this stuff. Uh, I don't know. It's interesting. I was a little bit surprised that he didn't go more in depth into like steroids. Thank God he didn't do that because the steroid jokes will be off the charts, going massive. Like, oh, the wrestlers died because of steroids, all that fun jazz. But I also was surprised they didn't talk about Chris Benoit, and I'm very happy he didn't because that's one way to drag a show down real quick. Talk about a double murderer. Uh, I don't know. I think John Oliver saying he was a wrestling fan was a real highlight in there, and he does make some really interesting and good points. But I don't think he understands, to be honest with you, like how much this company is able to get away with having a monopoly on wrestling, and how much power they do have in the wrestling industry. Like, you don't, like, there was a point where, I don't remember who it was, but someone says you don't show up and you're afraid of losing your push or your position on the card, so you show up and you go wrestle. I don't remember who that was, but I don't know, it's true, man. These wrestlers are pretty much fighting for their jobs in a way every time they go out there. Uh, if they don't put on a good show for the fans, they're gone. If they, well, actually, it hasn't stopped people like Great Khali from getting in the ring, but still, if they don't fit the template of what Vince wants, they're gone. It's a sad cycle, and it's only going to keep getting sadder. Look, maybe we'll get more. Maybe this will get more coverage or whatever, or maybe you'll get more attention if like main event wrestlers who are having it big right now start trying to form a union or start talking about this and getting past WWE and getting away from them. Like, imagine if Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and I don't know, Daniel Bryan or AJ Styles or someone starts talking about all these things. Wrestling fans are going to have more of a positive reception to that because they are wrestlers and they're talking about all these issues that we know happen and we want to help and support them because they have left such a lasting impact on our lives. Until that point happens, I don't think this is going to change at all. And it's sad that has to be said. It's dumb. It really is. It's sad and it's dumb, and I wish it wasn't going on. I really wish that all that stuff that I said prior was true, right? That everyone got their health insurance, all that jazz. I hope one day that does become fact, and there is a union, and maybe even an off season for the wrestlers. I'm sure the fans wouldn't really enjoy that much, but there's independent wrestling. There's other options, obviously, like TNA, Ring of Honor, etc., for wrestling fans who want to watch more wrestling during like their off seasons if they want to plan to have one. I don't think that'll ever happen personally. But who knows, man? It's dumb. I wish all the wrestlers got insurance. I really, truly do. I wish that we didn't have so many premature wrestling deaths, but that's the nature of the business, and that's really the worst part about this, is that this is a business where you are in, and then if you're out, odds are you're out for the rest of your life or career until you're broken, and hoping that people still remember you and that you left an impact on some of them, or you just fade into the wind at an old age, and that's sad as all hell. Uh, I don't know. I'm getting myself depressed, to be honest with you. Uh, what I will say, again, go watch the Oliver piece if you are a casual fan, or you're not a fan at all, and take everything he says with a grain of salt, and don't think of wrestling like as a less of a sport than like the NFL or anything else like that. Because if you do that, you're going to A, hate the piece, and B, not take it seriously because of a bias involved in that. Involved in, not being considered a real sport. That's really all I wanted to say about the Oliver piece. I know I'm late, but whatever. Uh, you know what? Let's just wrap it up. Facebook, Screwjob Podcast. Twitter, at Screwjob Podcast. Patreon, Screwjob Podcast on Patreon. Yeah, look, go watch the John Oliver piece, and have a good afternoon.